Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. So I just come on briefly this morning because I just wanted to talk about probably a lot of you are maybe wondering what's happening with this trial of the killer or alleged killer, I have to say, of course, the alleged killer of Samantha Murphy. Now, we followed this case right from the beginning. Feels like a long time ago now. So it was not the February just gone. Was it the February before or the February before that? I mean, it was a long time ago when this crime occurred. This is a very difficult case because the body of Samantha Murphy, although she's, for reasons we don't know yet, the police have announced they believe she was murdered in a targeted attack when she went for a run one Sunday morning near her home in Ballarat, Australia. And the police have clearly stated they think she's deceased. They think she was targeted deliberately. And they arrested a young man, only in his early 20s, Patrick Orren Stephenson, who I don't think I've got a photo, so I'm going to upload a photo. Or have I got a photo of him somewhere? I had some photos up here of him, but no problem. I'm just going to upload one. Yeah, very young man. So Samantha was 51, mother of 3 children, one of them young. Her son really quite young. When this happened, he was under the age of 10. And 2 teenage children. We saw a very by Samantha's husband and also her oldest daughter Jess. Please, from them before we knew what had happened to Samantha, because when she first disappeared, it was initially assumed that any harm had come to her. Like, I'll play anyway. She went on a run. She was practicing for was going to be running, and off she went on her run. I'm just scouring down for a picture of Patrick. I know I've got a picture of him somewhere. I'll download one. She went on a run one Sunday morning in February. I think it was the 4th of February. Said I'll be back in an hour, approximately an hour. Never came back, and then it's a very difficult situation, isn't it? Because, your loved one goes off for a run or to walk the dog or whatever it is they go off to do in in their normal routine. And when do you start to get worried? Because though she says she'll be back in an hour, she didn't come back in an hour. I'm going to download a couple of pictures of him to put up there. I'm going to download this one of him more recently. Yeah, when do you start to worry? So they don't come back in an hour. Well, you think, oh, well, they're normally gone an hour, won't worry yet. And it gets to an hour and 15 minutes. And then you start thinking, oh, maybe they bumped into somebody. Then it's an hour and a half. And then what do you think then? You think, oh, my God, maybe they've tripped up somewhere. I think originally the thought was that might have happened to Samantha. She might have tripped and fallen. Her ankle maybe, but could have home with her. But, she couldn't she? So although there was immediate worrying about her, consternation about her, this is Patrick, an artist drawing of Patrick in a recent court appearance. But you'll see from, he's really thickened out since he's been in prison. 23, 24. So that leads a lot of people to say, oh, why would he have something like that? But when we look into Patrick's past, you know, he's not whiter than white. On the surface, he's like the all Australian boy, isn't he? He's like, God, he's, you know, I think he's going to be, you know, non-recognizable when we finally do see a recent photo of him. Because most of the photos we've got of him are from quite a while ago. Maybe he was only 19, 20. So yeah, it looks like the all-Australian boy. He's got a girlfriend. He was a tradie, an electrician, apparently. So probably worked in people's houses. His father is an famous Australian footballer, Orren Stephenson, and you know, he seemed to have everything going for him. Why would he throw it all away by doing something so terrible to somebody like Samantha? You know, makes you wonder, doesn't it? But, you know, if he's if he's found guilty, I personally think he is like almost a fledgling serial killer. That if he wouldn't have been caught, he would have maybe attacked other women. We don't know for certain that he hasn't attacked women in the past, really, do we? We don't know for certain. But of course, we don't know that he's actually guilty yet, so we've got to keep that all in mind. But what's happened to all my photos? I thought I had a picture of Samantha somewhere. I know I've got a little picture of her up in the right-hand corner. My pictures have disappeared. So let's find a picture. Let's upload a picture of Samantha because she's the most important one, whatever. Yeah, so a lot of people, because of his age, you know, and they're like, oh, why would he do that? Well, do you know what? Psychopaths, they don't need rhyme or reason. I'm not saying he's a psychopath because he's not even been found guilty yet. But if he is found guilty, and it turns out that he did this because he's a predator, then, you know, he could easily have gone on, if he wouldn't have been caught, to do further atrocities. But anyway, he's got to be found guilty yet, so we've got to remember that. The thing is, the police apparently, according to what they said, because do you know what, this case is so secretive. Bloody hell. I mean, you know, I know they have to keep the integrity of cases. I don't think I've ever known a case like this that has been kept so secret. You know, there's just been nothing, is there? Well, every now and again the police will release something when they're ready to. Obviously, I understand that they're on trial. Because if Patrick is found guilty, here's Samantha now. Here's a photo of Samantha. If he is found guilty, they don't want there to be any problem with his prosecution, do they? So this is Samantha Murphy. The picture on the right, that was her last day on earth, really. Her last morning, going out clearing up after the dog, dressed up in her jogging clothes. Shortly after this CCTV camera footage was taken, off she went on her run, and as I say, she never came home. And initially, yeah, I think it was probably thought she tripped up, had an accident somewhere. Her husband Mick started looking for her, and then eventually they had to phone the police because there was no sign of her. And there was intensive searches of the area, the Enfield State Park where she'd gone off running. No sign of her. And not only no sign of her, but no sign of anything. Any of her possessions, her phone or whatever, a watch or clothes, items of clothes or shoes, nothing. They found nothing. And so for quite a while they were saying that there was no foul play suspected, you know, like they do, blah, de, blah, de, blah. And then suddenly it was, yes, they thought there was foul play suspected. And then, you know, literally next minute, Patrick was arrested. And it was a real shock, I think, for the local community, for everyone, that a boy I mean, I'm calling him a boy, but he is a man, of course. But such a young man could be arrested for this crime. This is Samantha's husband here, Mick. They've been together since they were teenage sweethearts. They've been together forever. So I hope he's coping okay. I hope the whole family's coping okay. Anyway, so they arrested Patrick, and he's been in custody ever since. It's passed at least one birthday while he's been in custody. Now the trial has started. Now the police are supposedly have got unprecedented amount of evidence against Patrick, and that's why it's taken so long for it to come to court, because both the prosecution and the defence have to go through all the evidence, don't they? The defence have to be prepared for it when it comes up in court. The prosecution had to get it all, into order and decide what they were going to use, what witnesses they're going to call. So that's why it's taken so long, nearly 2 years really, or a year and a half, or is it 2.5 years? Do you know, it seems to have been going on forever. And this case now apparently has started, but you can't find out any information about it. And that's what we're going to chat about in this video. But first of all, I want to say thank you to you all. Thank you for caring about Samantha. I know those of you who are regular viewers of my channel, you care about Samantha. You want justice for this woman and for her family. And also for Patrick. I mean, Patrick, he deserves his day in court. He's got a, he'll be defending himself. And if he is innocent, then hopefully that will come out. And the real killer will be apprehended. But the police don't think that. The police think they've got the real killer, and they think they've got the evidence to prove it. But of course, what they haven't got is the body, because to this day, Samantha Murphy's body, her remains sadly have not been recovered, although her phone has been recovered. So thank you for watching. Please like, please subscribe, please share this video. Very special thank you to those of you who are my members, or if you've bought Ko-fis or sent super stickers, left nice comments, sent nice emails. Thank you so much for supporting my channel. These things mean a lot to me. Sometimes you do get a bit down. YouTube's not very friendly to small creators. What I found recently is I did a video about Nancy Guthrie, but I mentioned the Epstein connection. As soon as you mention the Epstein word, YouTube's on you like a shot, demonetizing your videos. Anyone would think they didn't want you to talk about Epstein, wouldn't they? Anyway, thank you so much. So I'm going to come into, hi lovely lurkers, hi replay crew. And now I'm going to come into the chat and see who's already in there. So where are we? So hi Lily, hi Mark, hi Daniel, hi Sean, hi Ole. Give him the 3rd degree. Yeah, well, I expect they have given him the 3rd degree. They should give him a lie detector test. Hi, Tracy. So, well, this is the question, old hippie. Like, there's nothing in the news about this trial at all. When I Google it every day to see what's going on, see what I can find out. Now, it has begun, but I think it's just preliminary hearings, but none of it has been released to the public. None of the media people are talking about it. So there must be some sort of reporting restriction. That's according to, I know it's only AI, but that's the only thing that's given me any information. The trial of Patrick Orren Stephenson, the man accused of murdering Ballarat mother of 3, Samantha Murphy, began on April the 8th, 2026, in the Victorian Supreme Court sitting at Ballarat. And so it says here that the current status, the trial is ongoing as of April 2026. The accused, Patrick Orren Stephenson, 24, so he's still only 24. Let me put Samantha's picture up. Very young man. Just scary, isn't it? But we mustn't forget, Patrick is not like, he's been in trouble before. He likes his drugs. He likes to take drugs. We've seen the videos of him when he's been out with his friends and he's been totally off his face, which is fair enough, I suppose. That's what young people do. But also, he'd been in trouble because he nearly killed himself. He crashed into a tree, didn't he, when he was on his motorbike? And he was in hospital. He was hospitalized and, quite seriously injured. But he did survive, and he did survive to go on and sort of live his life and allegedly attack Samantha. So initially, I think people were thinking as well then, was this an accident? Was he coming home from a night out and he killed Samantha by accident? And maybe just tried to cover it up because he knew that he would be in trouble for it. But the police are saying no. The police are saying it's not an accident. It was murder. They've charged him with murder, not manslaughter, not, not reporting an accident or fleeing the scene of an accident, all the things that they could have charged him with. They have charged him with murder. They're saying as far as they're concerned, they have the evidence to support that he deliberately targeted Samantha and deliberately killed her. So, we've got to, anyway, so this trial is anticipated to last approximately 6 weeks. Now, if you remember anything about the Erin Patterson trial, the mushroom murderess, that again wasn't that anticipated to last approximately 6 weeks, but it went on for about 3 months, it felt like. So are we not going to find out anything until after it's over? Or is it once the preliminary hearings are finished, maybe we will get some information? Just at the moment, there's just nothing. So there's got to be some sort of restrictions on this trial because it apparently has started. So it says here that the location, the proceedings are being held in Ballarat, the community where Miss Murphy lived and disappeared. Judicial process. The case was fast-tracked to the Supreme Court after Stepenson waived his right to a standard committal hearing in November 2024. The background of the case. So, Samantha, she disappeared on February the 4th, 2024. So, yeah, over 2 years ago. After leaving her home in Ballarat East for a morning run. And the search, despite multiple large-scale and targeted searches, in areas like Mount Clear and Enfield State Park, Miss Murphy's body has not been found. Recovered evidence, her mobile phone, credit cards and licence were discovered in May 2024 at the bottom of a dam in Bunyinyong, south of Ballarat. So that was the last big break in the case, wasn't it? Now, since then, they have done other targeted searches. They even took Patrick himself out, didn't they? They took him to the state park they actually went out there with Patrick. Now, we don't know because there's been, no information released. We don't know if he went voluntarily with the police or they made him go with them. They think he knows where she is. The thing is, will he ever say where she is? I thought maybe he might, when it came nearer to the trial, if he thought he was going to get found guilty. I did wonder if he would change his plea to guilty and he was keeping the location of the remains as like a last bargaining chip, to do with the prosecutors. but he hasn't with it so far. Now we'll have to see how the trial goes. Maybe as the trial goes on, if it starts looking as if he's got no chance of being found innocent, maybe his solicitors will advise him to say where she is and plead guilty. We don't know. And now, because it's all sort of cloak and daggers. Oh, thank you, Sean. Sean's given a free membership there. Let's have a look. I have to go on my. I have to see. So that free membership has gone to Angels Are Near. That's a nice handle, isn't it? Angels Are Near. I certainly hope they are. So thank you for that, Sean. That's very kind. So yeah, sorry, just completely distracted me from what I was saying. Oh yeah, so will that happen as the trial goes on? Will his lawyers decide this? So as the evidence comes out, supposedly, this unprecedented amount of evidence that the police have got against him, 400 pieces of evidence, data, evidence, to go through. Will then the lawyer say to him, look, you're not going to be found innocent. Your last bargaining chip that you've got is to release the whereabouts of Samantha's remains. Will that be the advice that he gets? Or is he just going to stick to his not guilty verdict and think, well, they won't be able to prove that I did it? I mean, who knows? I mean, this is so secretive. So it's crossed my mind. Everything seems so secretive, even more so now than it always was. I mean, Australian police are not transparent, are they, with their details of cases? But it made me, I was just thinking, is this because of the mushroom murderer trial and all the media hype around that? Is it possible that they have decided they're going to keep because this is another high profile case, just like Erin Patson's case was high profile. So have police decided make it, or the judge decided we're not going to release anything? I mean, we know absolutely nothing. So we're presuming that this trial has actually started on the 8th of April. And, we knew there wouldn't be cameras allowed in the court, but normally there's journalists allowed in the court, and then they can come out at the end of the day and tell us what happened that day. But not with this case, not at the moment anyway, unless it is just because it's preliminary hearings and there's nothing really much to say. When are we going to find out? When are we going to actually see what is happening? It's so if the case, let's suppose we're not going to find out till the end of the actual case. So that's another 6 weeks before we find out anything. Oh my God. Anyway, listen, the most important thing is he is tried fairly, and whatever conviction or whatever verdict ends up being found, that it holds up, because it must be very frustrating for the police, really, because first of all, you've got to find the perpetrator. First of all, you've got to assess the crime, really, when someone disappears like Samantha did. So they went from no foul play indicated to, yes, definitely foul play. Yes, we think she was murdered. Then Patrick was arrested. Then their focus is, first of all, it's asserting what's happened to someone. Then it's arresting the person who did it. Then the whole focus then is on prosecuting them successfully, isn't it? Because there's no point in arresting somebody and charging them, and then it turns out you can't get it to court, you can't get it over the whatever hurdles there are to actually go to court. And then, of course, what you want is a guilty verdict, because if you've gone to the extreme of arresting somebody and you're, convinced that they are the killer, you don't want them to get away with it, do you? You want the conviction to be successful. Now, I understand. Obviously, I understand that, and the law enforcement's duty is to the victim and the family, not to the public, of course. Well, secondary to the public. Their first duty, if you like, is to the victim and their family. But this has been, a very long time. Like over 2 years, and we don't really know we don't know what evidence they have against Patrick. We know none of the evidence that they've got against Patrick, do we? Not even, they say they've got an unprecedented amount of evidence, but we have no clue what it is. Why did their suspicions turn to Patrick Stephenson? Is it phone data in the area? I think that's quite likely, isn't it? I wonder if his phone was in the area beforehand, before the incident. There's a reason why they've arrested Patrick. I mean, they haven't just arrested him because they felt like it, especially someone like Patrick, who's, for all we know, sort of, comes from a good family, and although he's got his penchant for drugs, recreational drugs, most young people have. He won't be unusual in that, will he? So, yeah, it's strange, isn't it? We still do not know why their suspicions rested on Patrick at all, or why they think that Samantha was deliberately targeted, that it wasn't an accident. So, her mobile phone, credit cards and license were discovered in May 2024 at the bottom of a dam in Bunyinyong, south of Ballarat. And I remember that clearly. That was those dogs, wasn't it, that can sniff out electrical, sniff out data cards, SIM cards, electronics, etc. Bloody brilliant, what these dogs can do. And so the prosecutors alleged that Stevenson murdered Samantha in the Mount Clear area, roughly 7 kilometres from her home, on the very day that she went missing. So that's what they're like. Now, they must know that from something to do with the smartwatch she was wearing. There must have been a spike in activity or something when she was attacked. And he must have been linked into that area at the time for them to ever, his phone must have been in the area, do you think? Anyway, related proceedings is that he was separately fined. So while he's been in prison for Samantha's murder, charged with Samantha's murder, he was separately fined $25,000 and disqualified from driving for 28 months. And this was in early 2025 because he pled guilty to unrelated drink and drug driving charges stemming from a motorcycle crash in October 2023. Now, this is, one could say, if that would have been dealt with properly at the time when it happened. This is in 2023. Maybe he should have been disqualified from driving then, and then he wouldn't have been out there driving around to murder Samantha, or allegedly murder Samantha. So nothing ever came of that. Probably because he went into hospital. Also, because he's a good old Australian boy, isn't he? Son of a famous Australian football player, girlfriend. He's an electrician by trade. He's been a football player himself. It does make you quite angry, really, because why was he not held to account then? In 2023, and if he would have been banned for driving, he wouldn't have been able to be out there to murder Samantha, or allegedly murder Samantha. So it's a bit annoying, isn't it, to know that he got away from that. So let's have a look at the trial logistics and proceedings. So it's being held at the Ballarat Law Courts, with the Victorian Supreme Court sitting locally to accommodate the community. So this was some confusion that we've had before when we talked about it. Was it being dealt with in the Supreme Court, the Victorian Supreme Court, or the Ballarat Law Courts? Well, it's a bit of both, because it's being held at the Ballarat Law Courts, but the Victorian Supreme Court is sitting locally to accommodate the community. And the presiding judge is Justice Jane Dixon. I think we should have a look at the judge, shouldn't we? So this is the first time I've seen this, of who the judge is. So it's a woman. Let's have a look at her. I'll see if I can show you. So the Honourable Justice Jane Dixon. She was appointed to the court in 2015. Now I'm going to show you this website. So, of course, the Erin Patterson case, the judge, it was a guy, wasn't it? I've forgotten his name now, sorry to say. So this is the judge. This is the judge that is sitting on this trial. Hi, Admit. I hope I've said hello to everybody. If I haven't said hello to you, say hello to me again, and I'll say. So here she is, the judge. Oh no, not her. Why is that up at the top there? I thought she looked quite young there. Anyway, I mean, she still looks quite young. So this is her, Justice Jane Dixon. The Honourable Justice Jane Dixon sits in the Criminal Trial Division of the Supreme Court of Victoria, and was appointed to the court in 2015. Prior to this, she was a member of the Victorian Bar for over 20 years, specialising in criminal law. During her time at the bar, Jane was a member of the Bar Council, chair of the Pro Bono Committee, and a founding member of a committee aimed at encouraging Indigenous lawyers to join the bar. She has also served as president of Liberty Victoria, one of Australia's leading civil liberties organisations, which works to defend and extend human rights and freedoms in Victoria. Well, that's all very well and good, but of course, I don't know how I feel about that, because I do believe in human rights, obviously, but sometimes the victims get a bit left behind, don't they? And the human rights of the perpetrators seems to be more important. But anyway, we'll have to see what happens. So she's also a member of ACSO's Quality Safety and Service Delivery Committee. So that's our judge. That is our judge. The Honourable Justice Jane Dixon. Let's see if we've got any other commitment to human rights. Oh my goodness. Sorry, this is something from Monash University. Isn't Monash University where Erin Patterson's sister? Is it Erin Patterson's sister? Isn't she something to do with Monash University? Why is Monash University ringing a bell for me? I don't know. Anyway. Commitment to human rights and First Nations people. There she is. Yeah. That's the judge in charge of this trial. Okay, what else have we got on this AI sort of summary of what's going on? So, presiding judge, Justice Jane Dixon is overseeing the case. The legal teams, the prosecution is led by Raymond Gibson, KC, and Joanne Poole, and Stepenson is represented by Moya O'Brien and Michael Allen. The trial officially commenced, and so it's Just saying, it started on April the 8th and is expected to run for approximately 6 weeks. So, key evidence and arguments in this case: unprecedented CCTV. I keep hearing this: unprecedented volume of evidence, unprecedented this, unprecedented that. 12,000 hours of CCTV footage and dash cam material. I mean, he's been seen, hasn't he? Must have been seen in the area, maybe even, I don't know, unloading or loading her up. Who knows? Who knows what's in this? Recovered belongings. A critical piece of evidence is her iPhone, credit cards and driver's license found in near perfect condition in the bottom of a dam in June 2024. It's a no-body case, as Miss Murphy's body has never been found. The prosecution must rely on a circumstantial case to prove that Stepenson deliberately attacked and killed her in the Mount Clear area. He has pled not guilty. He's maintained his innocence throughout all preliminary hearings, and his defence team successfully applied for several adjournments prior to the trial to review the massive brief of evidence. And recent developments just shows you there haven't been any really, because it just says here in April, God, was it April last year? So it was a year ago. Oh my God, where does the time go? Police reportedly took Patrick Stephenson to bushland near the Enfield State Park, although investigators clarified this did not necessarily mean he was cooperating or knew the location of the remains. So we don't know if he went there voluntarily or whether the police made him go. Jury selection. Residents of the Ballarat region have been called for jury duty, although the process is complex due to many locals having personal connections to either the victim or the accused. Yeah, because Ballarat, I mean, it's not a tiny place, is it? It's not as tiny as Leongatha, where Erin Patterson was tried. But it's not a massive place. It's not like Melbourne or one of the bigger cities. But I don't know if he chose to have it in Ballarat or whether that was just where it's ended up being. God, it's so frustrating when you cannot get to the bottom of things. Thank you, Admit. Thank you, Admit. How frustrating is it when you can't get to the bottom of things? We've just got all this, I know we're not the family, I don't know if Mick and the rest of the family, if they're getting more information. I would imagine whatever the police can tell them, they will tell them. They will keep them in the loop as close as possible. And I know that the police's duty isn't to keep us as the public satisfied. Their duty is to make sure they get successful conviction of someone that they think has done this terrible thing to Samantha. Yeah, and then of course it's him as well. I mean, there's a duty to him and his family, because there is, I do feel for his family and his girlfriend. They're all sticking by him from what I can gather. But is it because they're convinced he is innocent? We've seen this just recently with the Gilgo Beach killer, Rex Herman. In the beginning, his wife and his family were sticking by him. He then rewarded them for that by later, changing his plea to guilty. So I hope he spoke to them first. I've got a very interesting interview coming up, actually. I'm not sure when I'm going to be able to do it, but we'll do it. Looking at a bit more into him and what's like in prison for him and how he's acting, etc. I think it's bad enough where you find out your loved one has been arrested for murder. Imagine whether it's your son, whether it's your husband, your partner, your brother, whoever, your son, somebody who you love has been arrested for murder. So they're gonna, when they say to you, "Oh, I don't know why I've been arrested. This is nothing to do with me," blah 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 blah. You're going to believe them, aren't you, in the beginning? Because you're not going to want to not believe them, are you? It'd be hard to accept that your dad or your son or your partner is a killer. And so they'd be giving you all excuses, and you would want, people believe what they want to believe, don't they? And denial, as we've seen, is such a strong emotion. So imagine that. So you coast along for 2 years defending your loved one. No, there's no way my Johnny could have done that, or my loving husband, he's the sweetest man you've ever known, he would never hurt anybody. Then after 2 years of defending them like that, suddenly they turn around and say, well, actually, yeah, I did kill all those women. I'm talking about the Rex Herman now. Oh, actually, yeah, I did. You know how I didn't? Well, I did. 8 women at least. I mean, he's bound to have done more. I think there's no doubt that Rex Herman has killed more people, but he's just only been caught out for these 8. Oh, sorry, love. Some of Rex Herman apparently took so matter of fact. He'd be like, like if you're saying to your husband, "Oh, have you seen my favourite glass? That I like to drink my wine in, or whatever. Have you seen it anyway? I haven't seen it for ages. You haven't broken it, have you?" And he's like, I'm sure we've all been through this with loved ones. No, I don't know where it is. I haven't seen it. No, I haven't broken it. And then, 6 months later, they buy you another one and they say, well, actually, I did break it, but I didn't want to tell you because I know you love that glass. It's not like that, is it? We're talking about somebody who's saying, no, I didn't kill those 8 women. And then 2 years later, kill them. You defended them to everybody. He says he didn't do it, and I can't imagine he could have done it because he's so nice. Like people now say about Patrick, oh, he's such a young lad, and he's a handsome lad, and he had a girlfriend. Why would he be attacking a 51-year-old woman? It's just a silly thing to say, isn't it? Why do people do what they do? Some people do bad things. It doesn't matter if they've got a girlfriend. It doesn't matter how old they are. It doesn't matter how old the person they do the bad things to is. People do bad things. Sometimes it's in the spur of the moment. It could be the case with Patrick. He was driving home, drugged up, drunk, whatever he was, and he's seen Samantha running on her own, and don't know, maybe it's fancy he's always had of, things like RAPE. They're actually not anything to do with sex, really. It's about power. It's about, if somebody just wanted, a physical release, they could go, to be fair, they could go, with a working girl, couldn't they? Or there's lots of things they could do, or they could try and pick up a one-night stand, or, it can't be that. It's not that difficult for young people, is it, really, to find somebody to have sex with? But this kind of thing, attacking a stranger, if he's guilty, of course, we have to remember it's only allegedly. It's nothing to do with sex. He had a girlfriend. He was probably having sex on a regular basis, but it's not to do with that. It's to do with the power of it and the predatory nature. Some people are just wired up that way, the sadism in them. And he may have done it before. And he certainly would have done it again if he would have got away with it, I think. Because the more they get away with it, the more emboldened they get to do it again, don't they? If they get away with it, they think, oh, the police are thick, they won't catch me. So I do think it's, it's much more than just, in some ways, and it's horrible, really, because Samantha could have almost been anybody, any woman. It wasn't because, I don't think she was targeted because he knew her, from what we can gather anyway. Don't think she was followed or stalked, or the police aren't saying that. I mean, that might come out in the trial. We don't know, do we? It could be that he was following her. Who knows? Maybe he had a reason. So far, the law enforcement have denied any connection between them, that they knew each other or anything. So, but just because the police say something doesn't mean they're telling the truth, does it? Because they don't have to tell the truth. Their responsibility is to the integrity of the case. They don't have to tell the public the truth, do they? So yeah, that's really all we know. And I know, sorry, it's not much, but I've been looking every day, and yeah, apparently the trial has started. It's going on, and I was looking forward to covering it, really, to getting some answers. Sooner or later, they'll have to release things, I suppose. But when that's going to be, I don't know, because you know what? Not only they're not releasing any of the information. I've noticed on the news channels like the Australian news, etc. They're just not mentioning it at all. They're not even mentioning it to say they can't mention it. Just like nothing, complete silence. And apparently, that's how it is sometimes. That when a sort of reporting restrictions are put on a case, if they're severe reporting restrictions, that literally includes not being able to say that there are reporting restrictions. That reminds me a bit of the Spanish system, because that's how it is here too. If they decide to make a case secret, they literally can't even tell you that it's secret. They just can't say anything. I know that from the Anna Knežević case when I rang up about that to the courts, and they said that well, it wasn't them actually. They gave me a number of somebody else to speak to, like a media person, the media person for the courts, and they said to me, "Look, this case has been declared secret, and that means that the court, when you ring up the court and you ask." Has this case been made secret? They can't even say yes or no. They can't they just have to refer you to us because they can't comment on it at all. It is that secret. So it seems like this might be what's happening with Samantha's case. But believe me, sooner or later, surely something's going to come out. I did wonder, are they doing this because of the media circus that was around the mushroom murders trial? Maybe. But surely sooner or later details have to come out, don't they? Anyway, as soon as I know, you will know. I will let you know. So we're just left. All we can do really is say justice for Samantha one way or another. If Patrick Orren Stephenson is innocent, well, it'll come out in court, won't it? And as I say, I do feel for his family too. Can't be nice. And just imagine the mum and the dad get the phone call. Oh, I've been arrested. Oh, what for? Well, wouldn't you be thinking, if your son, who had a little bit of a checkered history as far as partying and that was concerned, your son phoned you from prison, and you'd just assume it's for drugs charges, wouldn't you? Oh, what have you done now? Have you crashed your motorbike into another tree? Oh no, actually it's murder charge. It'd be like, what? It just must be awful for them and his girlfriend. So let's hope that Patrick does the right thing eventually, if he is guilty, and says where this it seems like Samantha was a lovely, lovely woman. Everybody's got only good things to say about her. She was a mother of 3 children. And yeah, now Mick has had to bring these children up on his own, or finish off bringing them up on his own. They'd been together for so long, I expect Nick was completely lost when he lost Sam. Maybe sooner or later he'll find somebody else, to help him through and that, but he'll never have Sam back, will he? So just so sad, so awful. And of course, it makes women scared. Women shouldn't be scared of going for an early morning jog, or walking their dogs and, around, even if they are secluded areas. It shouldn't matter. Why shouldn't they be able to do that in safety? It's terrible. Terrible. If he is guilty, if he is found guilty, I hope he gets a long, long sentence. I don't think Australia is very good for long sentences, personally. But I hope that Patrick gets a long sentence, if indeed, of course, he is guilty. So prayers for Samantha, prayers for her family. Let's hope sooner or later we get some details of what's happening. And yeah, Margaret, it happened. It's over 2 years. It's over 2 years since this all happened. I think, didn't she go missing on the same day as Sebastian Rogers? I don't know why I'm thinking that. Or actually, I think Sebastian Rogers went missing on the same day as Madeline Soto, but it was in February. It was in the February. Yeah, many cases have come and gone, been sorted since then. This case. And he's supposed to have taken the speedy route. God knows what would have happened if he would have taken the slow route. Bloody hell. Just think, it feels like 2 years. I think as well, because of there was this, like with all these cases, initially there's like a flurry of information, activity, etc., while the police sort of, when the police want our input, they ask for our input, all of us, like, ask for any information. Then when they get the perpetrator, it all goes quiet, doesn't it? And then they don't want it to be talked about anymore. But the genie's been let out the bottle. You can't, make a case high profile while you're looking for the perpetrator and then suddenly say, oh, don't talk about it anymore. It's a very strange sort of situation. And, there's a question, is now I've noticed over in the Nancy Guthrie case, isn't it? Oh, they're blaming it on, blaming all the YouTubers for everything, the streamers, and camping outside Nancy's house and stuff like that. But if they did manage to capture some information or something that was relevant, they'd be glad of it. But the neighbours don't want the streamers there now. They don't even want the memorial there for Nancy anymore. Now, I understand that after a perpetrator's been caught, yeah, you wouldn't want it, supposing the perpetrator in the Nancy Guthrie case was caught tomorrow, then there's going to be another week or so where it's going to be intensive media attention still. But you wouldn't want it to go on forever, it'd be like, oh, well, look, they've caught them now, let's leave it. But Nancy's perpetrator hasn't been caught. Why the neighbours? Just so they just want to move on and pretend it never happened. It happened right in their midst. I'd be terrified if I were them, that it was going to happen to me as well. I'd be glad of having the sheriffs around and, God, if only the sheriffs had been round there so much before Nancy went missing as they have been since she went missing. If only the neighbours weren't more so observant before Nancy went missing as to now, as soon as a YouTuber stops outside just to take a photo, they're out there whinging about it and phoning the police. But they didn't notice an 84-year-old woman being plucked from a bed in the middle of the night, did they? Oh, that Nancy Guthrie case, that poor woman. Anyway, so there you go. I finished on a rant. Okay, I'll see you really soon in the next video. Always remember to look after you first. You are the most important person. If you don't look after yourself, who's going to look after all the people you look after? I want to say thank you to Sean for gifting the membership that went to Angel, somebody over on the other channel, I think that is. I think so, I'm not sure. But anyway, thank you for gifting the membership. Thank you to all of you for all of your support. I'll see you really soon in the next video. Till then, may your God go with you. Thank you. Bye. And justice for Samantha. Bye.